hydrogen podcast of the Hydrogen Dialogue Summit and Expo. And your host, Jürgen Pfeiffer.
Servus, hallo and welcome to a new episode of the Hydrogen Elevator, the hydrogen podcast from Nuremberg Trade Fair. We're in Munich today, reporting live from the Smarter E-Europe, Europe's largest trade fair for the solar industry. I'm Jürgen Pfeiffer, and as your hydrogen lift boy, I'm particularly pleased that you're accompanying us on the turbulent road to the new federal government, because with the experienced energy manager and still chairman of the National Hydrogen Council, Katharina Reiche, the now new Minister of Economics for the CDU and on the one side, and with Carsten Schneider as the new Environmental Minister for the SPD on the other, this will surely be an exciting and in coalition terms probably also extremely challenging journey with many discussions about the role of climate-neutral hydrogen molecules in the next 4 years. In any case, today we will be talking about a very important part of the agenda of this new government, for which it has, by the way, provided a lot of money and new debt, namely the issue of energy infrastructure. And because the associated questions are not only of regional or national importance, but above all of European importance with regard to energy independence, the title of today's podcast episode is the same as the panel discussion we just discussed a few moments ago here in Munich with our guests at the trade fair. From the SoutH2 Corridor to the hydrogen core grid, fast lane or detour for a green industry. And to ensure to get competent answers to these complex questions, I have asked two of our most exciting experts from the panel to join me in the podcast here in Hall 5, each of which can illuminate this topic from a completely different perspective. The guest, to my right, was born in the lovely mid-Italian town of Viterbo, some 80 kilometers away from Rome. He holds a university degree in management engineering at the Milan Politecnico and started his career as business analyst at a strategic advisory firm. In 2005, he joined Italy's biggest energy company, Eni, and covered different leading positions within the following 16 years. Among other tasks, he managed the entry of the company onto the Russian market, prepared the strategy to access the US, and worked in London as Vice President Biofuel Trading. Back in Milano, he was entitled Senior Vice President Market Analytics, Strategy and Market Design of Eni Gas Power and LNG Marketing before he became head of LNG Portfolio Management within the Natural Resources Division. In July 2021, he joined Italy's biggest TSO, Snam, as Senior Vice President at the CFO and International Office. 1 year later, he's been appointed Executive Director Decarbonization, and since then, he's taking care of Snam's operation in hydrogen as well as carbon capture and storage. In that position, he's also a member of the Board of Directors of Hydrogen Europe in Brussels. Please give a warm welcome to Piero Ercoli. Benvenuto, Piero.
Thank you.
The guest to my left is a lawyer by training and studied law a few kilometers away from here at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich and at Swansea University of Wales. After completing his doctorate, he joined an international business law firm in Munich, where he later became a partner for a few years. In 2011, he moved into the energy industry and took over responsibility for the legal department of Munich's municipal utility company. This was followed by positions in the strategy department and corporate controlling before assuming commercial management of Bayernets GmbH in 2016 and claiming full responsibility as CEO of Bayernets in 2018. For those not so familiar with the world of long-distance transmission network operators, here's a little fact sheet. Bayernets is a Bavarian long-distance transmission network operator for gas, operating on behalf of its shareholders Bayerngas, Stadtwerke München and Stadtwerke Augsburg. Bayernets transports gas through southern Germany, but is also relevant to Tyrol's energy supply and therefore an important part of the European gas transport system. He'll explain everything else to us in a few minutes. Welcome, Matthias, Jenn.
Thanks for having me.
Great pleasure. Gentlemen, since yesterday, there's been a new federal government in charge in Berlin, even though will certainly still be difficult the day after. This is nevertheless, from a Bavarian and an Austrian and Italian perspective, a cautionary attempt to formulate expectations from the points of key players. What does your Italian and perhaps European expectation horizon describe best when you look at the new German government, Piero?
Well, that's a very difficult question for an Italian to answer. For the moment, what we have seen is, the program that the coalition has struck, which confirm some of the points that are at the center of our investment, meaning that we had a very strong collaboration the last years with the German and Austrian government together with the Italian government for the SoutH2 Corridor. And from what we can read, we see that part of the program still there. But we also expect at the same time, the government to look at other avenues. There was some rumors about carbon capture and sequestration as well. So we need to see what the government will put in place. On our side, we are ready to continue to work in the best way especially from my regards on the SoutH2 Corridor.
Matthias, you are on the board of the Federal Association of Long Transmission Network Operators, FNB, and as treasurer of course paying particular attention on the association's cash positions. But knowing that, not exclusively, what do you in the association expect from the federal government and especially the new Minister of Economics, especially with regard to issues such as pragmatism, perhaps carbon storage, power plant strategy and stuff like that?
Very interesting, very good question. So let's try to split it. If we take a focus on hydrogen to start with, the former government has, to be honest, been very supportive of the issue of hydrogen, especially with regard to the SoutH2 Corridor. There we saw a lot of support from the BMWK, and we think, or we expect basically, that this support will continue, as Katharina Reich, as you mentioned before, is the head of the National Hydrogen Council. So we think that there will be no huge change, to be honest. With regard to natural gas, we think, or we expect to see a little bit more a pragmatic approach. Under the Green Minister Robert Habeck, natural gas as a fossil energy carrier, as it is, had sometimes a little difficult issues there. We expect that the new minister, Katharina Reich, will have a more pragmatic approach. And finally, the last administration loved to go into detail to do micromanagement. Regulation, that was their, at least to my impression, was their hobby. My hope is that the new administration will cut this a little bit back, less micromanagement, higher level, just to give us a little guidance where they want us as industry to go to, but then leave the micromanagement management itself to the industry. And I think that would be the better end.
So you mean other governments, other hobbies?
Yeah, like in reality.
Okay, Piero, from the European perspective, when you regard the decision-making processes in Brussels, when you look at the RED III directive and the talks with the presidency, with Ursula von der Leyen, with all the learning that has been officially announced by the new Commission, have you the impression that Germany should step in and be more present in the future in Brussels in energy terms?
Well, that's a very good question.
I'm always asking good questions for my friends sometimes.
No, I think that there is a message coming across of more pragmatism that has been declared, that has been announced. I think the important thing is to see a little bit of this in the facts. To be honest, I think we're still lacking that.
I mean, there was the word of the German vote. That means that Germany has not been able to be in a very visible position.
Yeah, I agree. So I think together with other governments, this element of pragmatism, it's very important that needs to go into Brussels. It's not easy. I mean, let's face it, because there is a complex web of regulation that has been built over years. So to entangle that is not that easy. But in any case, I think that if we're talking about Europe, Europe have been probably too dirigistic, right? Trying to determine too much not only the direction of travel in terms of CO2, which is fine, but sometimes we have been losing track because we were trying to fight CO2 and then we have multiple counterintuitive objectives. We want to dictate which technology we need to use. That should be our responsibility as an industry to find the best solution to arrive at the best solution in terms of CO2. And what we have seen and what we have been preaching for the last 2-3 years at our company was, we need to have tailored solution also in terms of geography. I mean, Europe is not born as a one country, right? So actually we're very different.
We don't even have one language.
Exactly. And
not even our own newspaper.
Different geographies, different assets, different technologies. So we need to build on what we have. If you come to Italy, I'm responsible for hydrogen and carbon capture and sequestration. We can do this type of technology based on our geography because we have storage for CO2 or because we have a good configuration, good position for hydrogen to move it also across. So you cannot really, if you are in Rotterdam or in Antwerp, it's a different story. If you are in the south of Germany, it's another story. So you need to look at what you have. So that's a little bit what I expect, what I hope. Not only German government, also our government, which has been, to be honest, pushing very much the technology neutrality issue, has been one of the to bring this into the European arena, which on one side we have seen that with the Net Zero Industry Act, but sometimes then when you go into the detail, you still see some elements we were discussing before the delegated act for low carbon hydrogen. I think there is a general recognition from Hydrogen Europe, from other associations that, the way has been drafted so far, it probably doesn't allow to have low carbon hydrogen. So what's the purpose then, right? So it's not realistic. It's not implementable.
We have the SoutH2 Corridor as a main focus on that podcast episode. Matthias, when we look at the project, it's already a truly European project. It's a cooperation between Austria's Verbund, Snam from Italy, bayernets, and it's transporting gas from the northern African coast, from Tunisia and Morocco, in, let's say, 8 years distance to the southern parts of Germany. Should Germany and the new government in that respect also be more aware of a position building bridges between the neighbors in Europe, like Poland, like France, like Italy, in order to reestablish a kind of coalition of the powerful, to do first steps, to do coordination, to deliver also market models demand side wise, because as we discuss prices, as we discuss hen and egg problems since years, it has always been one part who does the first step and to show that it works and that there's a business model behind it. Is that perhaps one of the key responsibilities of the new government?
Simple answer, yes.
Great. Next question.
Thank you. And just correct you, a partner of the South Corridor is not directly Verbund, but GCA and TAC, because I just don't want to forget our colleagues.
Of course not.
Also, GCA is part of the Bund,
sure.
Bund
group. And also the two countries involved are Tunisia and Algeria, just to be precise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise.
But just coming back to your question, if you read the coalition treaty signed 48 hours ago, there's also, if I remember correctly, one sentence saying that Germany intends to become part or the head of a European hydrogen initiative. And I think that's a very good and important approach. I mean, as Piero just said, we are, due to our history, we are not one single country. Europe is not one single country. We have many member states and they are different due to history, whatever it is. And sometimes I think it's not easy to get all the 27 member states of the European Union together. In the panel before, I think Timo mentioned there are 27 cooks stirring in one pot. The outcome can be interesting sometimes. But I would really, really welcome an initiative from Germany to Italy, to France, to the big member states, to Poland, to say, okay, let's try an initiative where we as Europe, not Germany and Italy in separate ways, to create a demand on hydrogen, so that we can basically go shopping, be it North Africa, be it South America, be it Australia, it doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as it is cost efficient to bring the green hydrogen, the greenhouse gas neutral hydrogen to Europe. So the more member states work together, I think the bigger are the chances that at the end of the day we will be successful.
Unfortunately, not all of our listeners have been here in Munich when we discussed on the panel just an hour ago. But one of the key takeaways was there is no silver bullet, not even in terms of price tag for different industries that rely on the delivery of green molecules through the SoutH2 Corridor. When you look at the industries you've been talking to on the left or right, on the south and the west and the east, what are the expectations to that project from the industry? What is the price level, or the let's say the corridor for price for 1 kilo of hydrogen delivered to industry in different parts of that hydrogen chain until 2032?
Well, I think. If we look at the situation right now, we need to be realistic. And in the energy landscape, there's been a lot of issue with the current situation in terms of energy prices. I mean, at least in Italy, there has been intervention. The industry is very concerned about the cost of energy and also the cost of the transition.
I can tell you from the German side too.
Yes. So I think the work that needs to be done now is to rebuild confidence and try to get to solutions which are then realistic on one side, and they also have support on the other side. So in that sense, coming back to what you were saying before, I think I cannot complain to what the three governments have done in the last years, in the sense that every 3 or 6 months, there is a meeting, governments, regulator, TSO, off-takers, also producers, and this is very important. There has been the joint declaration of interest in Rome. There has been recently also a meeting in Baden-Württemberg. So these regular meetings allow to go into detail about how to solve the issues about financing infrastructure, creating a coalition of off-takers, and therefore you create confidence also in the off-takers that this is a real solution, right?
Are there already PPAs? Are there already off-takers behind taking millions or thousands of tons of green hydrogen after 2032? Are there any kinds of
this
contract?
Is not our job, and so we are not. We're not in the sense that at the end of the day we're not. Even if we did, for instance, we did this Snam market test last year to understand, on the hydrogen landscape what it was all about, what type of industries, what type of sentiments, and so on. So we published on our website the results. So were very positive result. But on the other side, to be very honest and transparent, people were a little bit hesitant in the long run. And we saw in the numbers, because we saw similar numbers at 2030 and 2040, which doesn't make a lot of sense, no? And the reason is because there is this anxiety on the short term. So we need to a little bit ease this and work together with all the stakeholders to craft the project and to go to the next level. On the other side, I think everything we have done in the infrastructure side to receive funding, to really start working on concrete steps, allow us to go there and say, we're really doing this, right? So at least we're doing our part of the job.
What is coming out when the pipeline is finished in 32 in Bavaria? How much do you expect quantity wise from the producing countries? How big is that pipeline filled?
So capacity wise, we will be able to transport from Austria to Bavaria, which is the last piece of the South Corridor from our perspective, 60 0.25 gigawatt. So now multiplied by 8,760 hours, then you know what the maximum amount would be from a technical perspective to import to Bavaria. To be honest, I don't think that from the day one this will be fully used. How much it will be, we will see, and this, as you mentioned before, depends very much on the price and on the business model for the off-takers. I mean, if I'm on the off-taker side, my current business is I use energy fossil-based mainly. To decarbonize or to defossilize, I can maybe switch some processes from molecules to electrons. That might work, but not for everyone. Some need molecules as feedstock, for example, the chemical industry. So there is no one size fits all. You always have to talk to the off-taker what they actually need and what is their business model. If you talk to companies punished by RED 2 and 3, they're definitely willing to pay higher prices than the chemical industry, which is okay, we want to defossilize, but at the end of the day, we still need a business model.
We're talking about, at the moment, of the creation of lead markets, like steel industry, like chemical industry too. How important are those pipelines in your view on a European level? And Matthias, also on a national level, because Germany is never always just using it for their own purposes. We are a transitional country, be it CO2 transports to Rotterdam or somewhere on to Norway, for other neighbor countries too. And we will have, as the energy market in Europe is like that, probably be also able to transmit or have to transmit energy from one part of the European continent to another part through those pipelines. Just being able to kind of be flexible and transport energy where it's needed. At the moment, we are starting that hydrogen backbone in the moment. How important is that infrastructure for those industries, even if they are not willing at the moment to sign contracts and PPAs for the next 20 or 30 years? Because there's no price market at the moment.
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, it's the first step you just mentioned before, the hen and egg issue. A couple of years ago, if you talk to the potential off-takers, what they told you, yeah, we know what to do. We want to defossilize, but as long as there's no transport opportunity, as long as there's no production, we will not change anything. The same story goes with the transport, the same goes with the storages, and the same goes with the potential producers. So everybody was waiting for the other players. And so in Germany, we made a decision, okay, let's start with infrastructure. Could have been one of the other stakeholders, but in Germany, we decided, okay, we start with the infrastructure. So at least from the transport side point of view, things become clearer. The plan is that we will have in Germany the hydrogen core network until 2032. So that is clear. We know where it's going to run to. We're currently discussing the prices, the tariffs. There's a proposal out there from the Bundesnetzagentur. At least from our industry's perspective, that could be a reasonable price tag. If you talk to industry, not surprising, they say, no, it's way too high.
Yeah, sure.
So at the end, the Bundesnetzagentur will have to decide what the tariffs will be. So from the transport, we basically can tick the box and say, okay, everything is on its way. It's not realized, but we have a starting point, and we can basically tick the box there.
Just because I never had the experience to build a pipeline myself, so I'm asking for some friends of mine. Can we imagine that we fill in also from different other regions than just from the producing regions in the northern parts of Africa, that we fill into those pipelines also product and energy from Italy, from Austria, from Bavaria, to continue and to distribute it as a distribution core grid too? Or is that a very, very unique one-way road to transport?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, the pipeline is a pipeline. So as today works for natural gas, logically will work the same, in the sense that you can have different injection points. And actually, at the moment where we're doing the feasibility study, the detailed feasibility study for the Italian part, of course, we are also aware of production projects within Italy, so we'll need to take them into account together with the exit points in terms of consumption. So from that point of view, is not that different to a gas network.
Just thinking, because when we look at international developments, Pakistan-Indian clashes, the different transport probably in the southern eastern Chinese Sea, when you would think of Taiwan, wouldn't it make sense then also to think about a kind of coordinated pooled European energy production union, which is trying to aggregate as much as energy offshore and onshore and distribute it on the continent to a lowest possible price? Wouldn't it make sense to do that on a European level?
Theoretically, yes.
And practically?
Practically, no. No, in the sense
why?
Because it never worked. I mean, we've been trying to do that for gas.
We're looking at the past. I mean, we never had situations like that in the past. So why shouldn't we reach out for new horizons when the pressure is on?
But because at the end of the day, I think the answer is more like this should be left to companies to do that, because we still live in...
Don't we need politicians and presidents and minister presidents for that? To pave the way? And say we want that.
You need to create the framework, right, and then let them operate. To be honest, if you look at the hydrogen backbone and the projects, it's already a little bit like that, in the sense you see projects going a little bit, different geographies, different suppliers, depending on where you are. So I don't see that, to be honest, as an issue. It's a natural situation that this industry has been facing, and the industry will look at the best possible option, because it's in their nature to look at, if you look at MOUs, the people have signed MOUs with the US, with the Gulf, with Chile. So it's not that different to the gas industry when you're talking about long distance. The difference is that you're going to have probably even more suppliers, potentially, now, because there are parts of the world which are very well suited for. So at the end, I wouldn't try to make things too complicated at the beginning, because otherwise we will never get there. We just need to, in my opinion, try to go with the more mature corridor and get it done. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the next level and you will look at different options. Just one point to conclude. I mean, when we look at the SoutH2 Corridor, for instance, it's already a corridor which opens up at least two options of production, Tunisia and Algeria. But actually, in the last round of PCI, also there was a discussion recent in Brussels also to a connection between Greece and Italy. So you have already an additional potential source of supply. So you see that these things are coming, and they're coming almost naturally over time. So
you're very positive on developing that network and arterial system.
I mean, in the PCI there is also application in Italy for an ammonia terminal. So people will look at it and will try to find solutions. So I'm not particularly concerned about that.
I mean, if you take a look on the potential European energy production, I would focus on electrons. Because whenever you turn one energy carrier in another, you lose energy. So if we take on the energy production in Europe, try to produce electrons, try to use electrons, and only as a storage for seasonal storage, then the transformation makes sense. The big advantage of molecules is that you can transport them over a very long distance. Electrons, it's Europe, more or less, a little bit North Africa, but that's it. But molecules you can transport over very, very long distances. Pipelines, it's up to 8,000 kilometers. It's the most cost-efficient way to transport molecules. Then you are somewhere in Saudi Arabia. So that's a real huge circular. And if you go via ship, ammonia, whatever it is, then you're talking about the world market. So electrons, Europe, yes, focus on electrons and the import. And we will need import. We are depending on import forever in Europe. And this will not change in principle, and the molecules are much easier to handle than the electrons.
We will have to continue that debate on infrastructure. I'm afraid we're running out of time for this episode of the podcast at the moment. I would have liked to ask you about political issues, international affairs, but if you promise to come back, we continue that another day, very soon. Thanks a lot for you both, Matthias and Piero, for taking the time for this ride in the hydrogen elevator. And if you, as listeners in the digital world, enjoyed this podcast on the various digital devices and speakers, feel free to comment, or even better, please feel free to subscribe directly. If you didn't like it, or if you have any requests or questions, please call up Matthias. This is his telephone, or is this? No, it's my. The time is over. If you didn't like it, or if you have any requests, please feel free, and we're always happy to receive your feedback. We'll be back in 4 weeks, if it all goes. If we want, we'll report from the World Hydrogen Summit in Rotterdam with a Europe special on the subject of energy partnerships and cooperations, perhaps between the Netherlands and the Free State of Bavaria. Until then, servus, keep doing not just anything well, but always better. And we'll be back. Yours, Jürgen Pfeiffer. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Hydrogen Elevator, the hydrogen podcast of the Hydrogen Dialogue Summit and Expo, with exciting guests from politics, business, and associations. On the microphone, your podcast host, Jürgen Pfeiffer. Follow the Hydrogen Dialogue on the web, on LinkedIn or Instagram.